Hello and welcome to Inside 11Alive News Investigates. I'm Jonathan Martin. A new investigation by our Liza Lucas reveals criminals are coming for your mail. And here in a few moments, you'll see why thieves are targeting more than letters. Take a look.
Criminals coming for your mail.
Someone just put a gun on my U.S. postal carrier.
Thieves are not just stealing checks, they're pulling guns on postal workers.
Some breaking news at this hour. Atlanta police investigating after a postal worker was robbed in broad daylight in Buckhead this afternoon.
The surge in thefts and attacks led the U.S. Postal Service and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service to launch Project Safe Delivery, following an 845% increase in mail carrier robberies from 2019 to 2023. From Kennesaw to Smyrna, Decatur to Atlanta, 11Alive News Investigates reviewed incident reports and police body cam video, finding a concerning pattern. Criminals targeting post offices and mail carriers for a key.
He had the gun right here. Give me the keys. I cut off the truck and handed him the keys, thinking he wanted those. He said, no, I don't want those. I want the keys to the mailbox.
We're talking about arrow keys, master keys that unlock everything from collection boxes to package lockers to community mailboxes, sometimes giving criminals access to entire zip codes.
All you have to have as a criminal is just one key, and then you have access to hundreds of thousands of envelopes.
David Maimon, a cybersecurity expert and criminology professor at Georgia State University, has tracked check fraud on the dark web for years.
We realized that the criminals were essentially targeting USPS collection boxes using arrow keys that they robbed from mail carriers, emptying the boxes. They open the envelopes, they look for the checks.
The washed and stolen checks are sold on the dark web. In January, the USPS and Postal Inspection Service doubled down, saying the fight against mail theft and violent crimes against postal employees is of the highest priority, touting a drop in attacks since new safety measures launched. But data 11Alive News Investigates obtained shows the number of arrow keys stolen continues to go up, rising 27% in just 1 year, with more than 3,000 keys stolen, including 200 in Georgia, and only a fraction of the keys are found. Maimon sees the stolen keys showing up for sale, too.
Now we're seeing way more keys and the prices are lower, which speaks volume to the fact that these guys are able to create replicas of those arrow keys and then simply selling those in cheaper prices.
The Postal Inspection Service did not answer our questions about the spike in stolen keys, nor did it respond to our request for an interview. But the agencies added more secure collection boxes and electronic locks in high-crime areas. When we asked for specifics for Atlanta, we were told upgrades are being deployed in all 50 states. Meanwhile, Maimon says criminals continue to adapt.
I'm sure law enforcement are doing a lot in order to tackle this issue, but unfortunately, in terms of the data we are seeing, whatever we're doing right now is inefficient and ineffective.
Liza Lucas, 11Alive News Investigates.
All right, definitely concerning with the numbers continuing to go up. By the way, Liza Lucas joins us now with what her reporting reveals about the growing concerns with these issues that you just heard about. So, Liza, we hear about mail theft quite a bit, but is it more than just that problem, or are things really starting to escalate?
Well, I think there's two sides here, which is what we really tried to convey with our story. We've got the numbers showing that the robberies have gone down, which is definitely a good thing. At the same time, we've got the data that we reviewed showing that the number of stolen keys has really taken a rise. It's increasing, and that was just the 27% last year alone. So the big question we're still trying to get answers on and are pressing for answers on is, what are we really talking about here? Are we talking about this rise in key thefts as a true increase? Or is the agency now tracking the problem more effectively? Big difference right there, right? So despite multiple attempts, the Postal Inspection Service would not respond to our ask for an interview or even provide a statement, which you heard about in our story, when it comes to the surge in stolen keys and this data that we got through Freedom of Information requests. So we turned for some clues elsewhere. You're looking at some audits right here. These are national audits released just in the past few months from the Office of Inspector General, which is kind of a watchdog agency. They focus on Houston and Sacramento, thousands of miles apart, and they both show ongoing failures in safeguarding arrow keys. which again, these keys open up mailboxes across entire neighborhoods. So while there hasn't been a recent audit here in the metro, these reports suggest that the problem of securing the keys is ongoing and the risk is really real. Just to drive you back to our story that you saw right there, remember only 5% of those stolen keys were recovered.
Yeah, and that's not many at all.
Not at all.
Okay, so you also said that arrests are happening. We know that.
Exactly.
But what else is being done to combat this? This is a big problem.
It is a big problem. When we talk about arrests, the Postal Service is touting about 2,000 plus arrests in the last year, or rather since this Project Safe Delivery started. But prevention is the other big piece that they've really been trying to focus on. Now, the Postal Service has increased rewards for tips that lead to arrest, up to $150,000 in some cases. So that's pretty significant. They're also pushing Project Safe Delivery, and that includes new security measures. So let's dive into those measures and get specific here. We're talking about the rollout of electronic locks, or e-locks, as well as high security collection boxes. And Jonathan, when I talk about collection boxes, it's those blue boxes that we all use to drop in. Now, the audits show that the e-locks are supposed to make it safer for postal employees to collect and deliver mail because they add an extra layer of security and you're not relying on a single arrow key. The audits show so far more than 20,000 high security collection boxes have been installed across the country as of September, more than 30,000 e-locks installed. Beyond that, we don't really have a gauge to how far this goes, particularly in the metro. I did ask for specifics about whether these upgrades have come here to the metro, given the numbers that we have seen. We got nothing back from the postal inspectors.
Yeah, so really no reaction to most of your questions, no response at least.
No response. Well, I have to say, when I initially reached out, I got a little bit of clarity about one question, and then we brought them the data and said, okay, tell us now what you think and what's your statement. Things went dark from there. So we're going to continue to press on this, but as those keys are disappearing, you know, I'm sure people are wondering, what do you do?
What can residents do? That's the big question.
Right. So we want to continue to dive into this because ultimately we want to protect our mail. We want those postal employees to also be safe. So this really starts with awareness, like so many stories. Informed delivery is a good first step, but people have previously reported to 11Alive kind of mixed results with that service. But if you're not familiar, it's super easy. Informed delivery is through USPS. It's free and lets you know when to expect your mail. You basically get a daily email. Then when mailing checks, it's advised that you do it inside the post office. Don't put those checks in those blue boxes. Also, pick up your mail promptly. Don't leave it sitting in the mailbox. And then if you're out of town, have it held. And of course, if you see anything suspicious, report it. We've got the Postal Inspection Service hotline in our story on 11alive.com. But I gotta say, these risks go far beyond stolen checks. Expert David Maimon, who you saw in the story, he's given us a lot of insight here. He said if you mail a check, well, you're potentially handing over your entire identity. Take a listen.
So the most important thing folks need to understand about the check is that once you send a check or receive a check, the information on the check could be used by a criminal for all kind of purposes. If you are sending a check and your information is on the check, there's a probability that in addition to the criminal cashing the check and stealing $5,000 or more from you, they will also be using your identity to engage in other types of fraudulent operations. That potentially could include them opening bank accounts under your name. If you don't have a credit freeze on your credit scores, someone may take a loan under your name. They can rent apartments under your name, take new leases, buy guns using the identities. And so people need to be aware of these vulnerabilities because you know, the criminals do a lot once they have the identity in their hands, in addition to simply cashing whatever they're cashing from the check.
Also, he showed a really great resource that I had never heard of before, so we want to make sure that we relay, where you can track your bank accounts that might have been opened in your name. You know, we're very familiar with freeze your credit, freeze your credit, freeze your credit. But this just keeps you aware if somebody does get your information and tries to open a checking or a bank account, you're able to track that. And those reports are free every 12 months. We've got all of that information too in our story on 11alive.com. And then if you have heard of key theft or mail theft in your neighborhood, you definitely want to let us know as well. We'll continue to follow.
A lot of good information that you just shared with us. We know there's still a lot of questions here as well.
There are.
But we appreciate you staying on it. And thank you again, Liza. And if you suspect mail fraud or stolen keys in your area, you can head to our website. We have some resources on how you can report it. And we also want to remind you that if you've got a tip for Liza or any of our 11 Alive News Investigates crew, you can reach out to them by calling 404-873-9111, or you can email investigates@11alive.com. Thanks so much for joining us here for Inside 11 Alive News Investigates, and we'll see you next time.